Do you want to hear from a real life British dad who is successfully raising his children to be bilingual in Chinese and English? Do you want to know the secrets to his success? In this interview, we'll talk about his language immersion strategy and share tons of insights about raising bilingual kids. Keep watching.
Yeah, lovely to meet you. Fantastic, Carl. Because my audience would not have met you, so it would be
Yeah,
great to get to know you and to talk about your family's language setup.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a software developer. I've been programming most of my adult life, and I've been learning Chinese since I met my wife 6 years ago and making various apps to help me along the way.
Yeah.
Me and my wife have got two daughters. One's nearly 4, and the other is 10 months old. I've also got a 9-year-old daughter as well.
Oh, I've got a 9-year-old daughter as well. Okay.
All of them are learning Chinese at various stages. And we
Yeah.
spend a lot of time between China and the UK, traveling between the two countries. I've
Oh, wow.
I've been to China 5 times now, staying for about 1 to 2 months each time. I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed staying for longer because I felt like I was able to fully immerse in the culture.
Yes. Oh, what would you say you are fluent in Chinese?
Not fluent at the
Mhm.
moment, but at least conversational.
Conversational intermediate, maybe?
Yeah,
Yeah,
about HSK 5 level.
that's pretty good. That's pretty solid. Fantastic. Carl, how did you and your wife first decide that you wanted to raise your children to be bilingual and actually maybe trilingual because you mentioned Chongqinghua as well, because your wife
Yeah.
is from Chongqing.
Well, I wouldn't consider it another language, but it's definitely a dialect.
Definitely a dialect. It's just on because I previously made a video about Mandarin and Cantonese. Some people get very defensive about the use of the word
Yeah.
dialect in reference to the various Chinese variants. But yeah, we can call it dialect or variant. Yes. Are you actively teaching your children, your daughters, Chongqinghua as well, in addition to Mandarin and English?
Yeah. So we always knew that we were going to raise them to be bilingual
Yeah.
because my wife has so much extended family in China, and a
Mm,
lot of the older generation don't speak English.
of
We
course.
always knew we wanted them to have closer bonds with the family and have the opportunity to be exposed to more culture.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was an easy decision for you guys.
Yeah.
Like, okay. And when you made that decision at that time, did you already speak Chinese?
Um, I had just started learning Chinese when I
Wow.
first met my wife,
Yeah.
and after a few months, we decided to progress our relationship and make plans for the future.
Oh,
So we
wow.
always knew we were going to have two children and bring them up to speak Chinese.
Wow, that's really great. So broadly speaking, Carl, what's your strategy? Do you practice one parent, one language, or is it Chinese only at home? And where does Chongqinghua come into the picture?
So I speak mostly English to my wife and children.
Mm-hmm.
Although recently I'm trying to speak more Chinese now with the kids to improve
Oh,
my level
oh,
because
right.
I don't want the kids to get into the habit of only speaking English with me.
I see.
So my 3-year-old Lyra, her
Uh-huh.
Chinese and English are both very good.
Uh-huh.
And as you can imagine, a 3-year-old isn't going to be using advanced vocabulary. So I can understand like 95% of everything she says in Chinese. So
That's amazing. Mm.
it's quite easy for me to speak Chinese with her. And
Uh-huh.
if it's easy, then why would you not? It just creates more opportunity for me to learn and more immersion at home. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Because presumably you guys spend, would you say it's fair to say that you spend more time in the UK than in China as a family as a whole?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do a lot of traveling between both countries as
Good.
well.
Yeah. But by the sound of it, maybe Chinese would be the language that is a bit more prone to attrition further down the line, right, compared to English. Because
Yeah.
they will go to the British school, presumably in the UK.
Well, Lyra has been to nursery in both the
Yeah.
UK and China for
Oh,
several months
wow,
each
that's
time. So
great.
her balance of both languages is very good.
And the
She
older children?
so Lyra speaks a mixture of English and Chinese with my 9-year-old Thea, and
Yeah.
that really motivates Thea to learn more Chinese.
Ah,
As you can imagine, she didn't have a Chinese background before I met my wife, so
ah,
she's picking it up as we go along. But
right. Mhm.
as Lyra and Thea play together every day, I can see really fast progress. So Lyra will be using Chinese words for things repeatedly, and
Yeah.
then Thea will pick them up really quickly, sometimes learning several new words per day.
Oh gosh, that's incredible. That's the best teacher she can have.
And sometimes Thea will make up her own sentences in Chinese to say back to Lyra, and Lyra understands them, so they go back and forth, and it's great. And
Oh,
Thea uses Chinese apps on her tablet as well,
yeah.
including my app, and she
Yeah.
picks things up that way.
Wow, we were going to come to that, Carl. So you are the creator behind this really amazing Chinese learning app called Mandarin Mosaic. Is that correct? So you developed it yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll explore that app in more depth later, but can you just give us a quick summary of what inspired the creation of this app and what the app
S-
is all about?
Yeah, so when I first started learning Chinese, I started with word flashcards.
Uh-huh.
So you know those apps which just show you a
Yeah.
word and a few definitions of it, but
Yeah.
they don't show you it in
In
context. They don't
context,
show you
right.
how to use it in a sentence. So I
Yeah.
used those at first and really drilled that hard and
Uh-huh.
learned about the first 1,000 most common words. But I
Wow.
became burned out with that because they don't show you how to use it in a sentence. So when I started
Mhm.
reading sentences, I would have this experience where I knew every word in the sentence,
Yeah.
but I didn't understand the meaning of the sentence as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to make an app that focuses on learning new words through sentences. And it
Mm-hmm.
has a few tricks in it to show you sentences which are just at the right level for you.
Yeah.
But we can go more into a deep dive on that later.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, fantastic. Okay, that's so interesting. There's so much to get into. Great. So you told me that you and your wife are raising your children to speak English, Mandarin, and Chongqinghua. So how do you divide the languages at home between English, Mandarin, and Chongqinghua, especially? Is this something you do you firstly, sorry, do you speak Chongqinghua yourself?
Yeah, so
You
at
do?
first, that was really difficult for me
Oh,
because my wife's mum stays with us a lot as
uh-huh.
well, and that really helps with the childcare.
Yes.
But she doesn't speak English,
Uh,
and her Mandarin isn't very good. She
uh,
mostly speaks Chongqinghua.
okay.
So it's like a very strong accent on the Mandarin, and they have some of their own words as well.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
so
Mm-hmm.
at first, that was quite difficult because there was kind of this one-way communication where she could understand everything that I said in Mandarin because she can understand Mandarin no
Uh-huh.
problem.
Uh-huh.
But then when she spoke back to me, I couldn't understand it, so it could only go one way.
Oh, wow.
But
Okay.
after a few years of immersion and going to China a lot,
Yeah.
I've got used to it now.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's incredible, really. So you understand and can speak some Chongqinghua and you speak Mandarin. So you and your wife, between the two of you, you speak English. Is that right?
Yeah, so we have done some challenges where I've tried to say, okay, now we're only speaking Chinese for
Yeah.
the next few days to try and force me, but then I burn out after a few days.
It's such a good
So,
idea, though, having this challenge. Yeah. Oh, that's really
um,
cool.
so I can do that with my 3-year-old Lyra because she
Mm.
only uses basic Chinese, but with
Yeah,
my wife, I get frustrated after a few days because we can't understand each other sometimes.
I
So
guess.
I mostly switch back to English.
Switch back to English. And in terms of Chongqinghua, is that primarily coming from your in-laws, from your mother-in-law?
Yeah, and also when I go to China, my
Mm-hmm.
wife has a lot of extended family
Mm-hmm.
um, living in like rural villages in China. So we'll
Hmm.
go to Chongqing, which is a big city, but we'll also go to some of the rural villages on the outskirts.
Hmm.
And I won't see any Western people for weeks at a time and just
Yeah.
be totally immersed in their culture. And they'll only speak
Oh,
Chongqinghua, so that kind of forces me to learn.
oh, wow. How different is Chongqinghua from Mandarin?
I
Sorry, it's a
would
bit of a
say,
broad question.
yeah, I would say the difference between Chongqinghua and Mandarin is about the difference between Italian and Spanish.
A bit like Cantonese and Mandarin then.
I wouldn't say that far.
Maybe not that far. Okay.
Yeah, so they have some of their own words,
Mm-hmm.
but Chongqinghua is like a very strong accent on the Mandarin. So
Oh,
once you get used to the accent and how they kind of say things, like they don't say the in sh, they don't say the H, so it's like s.
ah, okay.
And once you get used to that kind of accent, you can kind of pick it up.
Right, interesting. On a day-to-day basis then, so I guess your wife primarily uses Mandarin 普通话 with the children, is that right?
Mostly Chongqinghua,
Mostly
actually.
重庆话. Oh yeah, so where's the Mandarin coming from then on a day-to-day basis?
Well, my 3-year-old will go to nursery in China if we're
Uh-huh.
in China, and they'll speak Mandarin with her because they try to enforce Mandarin at the nursery.
Yes.
So they'll speak Mandarin with her,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll speak Mandarin because that's most of the resources for learning Chinese are going to be in Mandarin. There's not going to be any resources in Chongqinghua.
Not
I
much.
haven't been able to find them.
That's right. Oh, wow, so okay, that's really interesting. So actually, your wife primarily speaks to the kids in Chongqinghua. So the man
Yeah,
is more coming from the nursery in China.
yeah.
Yeah. So in the UK, when you guys are based in the UK, is that the same? Is it the same setup? So Chongqinghua and English at home, and then where would Mandarin come from then, when you are in the UK?
Not very much Mandarin. It
Really?
depends if my wife's mum is staying with us or not,
Yeah.
because then there'll be a lot more Chongqinghua. And my 3-year-old will go to nursery in the UK and
Mhm.
speak English with them, obviously. And
Okay.
I've asked at the nursery in the UK, does she ever mix up Chinese when she's there? And they've said no, she just speaks English all the time, which I find amazing because at home
Mm,
she'll mix English and Chinese in the same sentence. So
right.
she'll be playing with me and she'll be like, Daddy, look at my wanju.
Oh, look,
And,
yes. Look at my wife too. Okay,
and
yeah.
then she has dancing classes.
Yeah.
So she'll say something like, Daddy, look at my jiuyang tiaowu.
Oh, oh, that's so cute. So that's sort of code mixing, right? So
Yeah,
mixing two languages. But she doesn't, but interestingly, she doesn't do that in her UK nursery.
no,
It
because
only
I
speaks,
think she recognizes that they
so they
can't speak Chinese.
yeah, 'cause children are so clever, honestly. Lots of parents, I think they worry that raising bilingual, trilingual children will confuse the kids, but they don't get confused. I don't believe that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Well, so that's really, really interesting, really cool. So how do you create immersion for the minority languages, especially you're living in an English speaking country in the UK?
Yeah, so we don't find it difficult to create immersion in Chinese and Chongqinghua at
Uh,
home
mhm.
because my wife's mum stays with us a lot.
Oh
And
wow.
also
Mhm.
my wife's aunt is going to come in a few weeks as well. So we'll have so many people speaking Chinese at home.
Yeah.
And my 9-year-old speaks a mixture of English and some Chinese at home, but as the kids play together, they share the language and teach each other, really.
Oh wow, that's awesome. And okay, so you have like so two daughters who have been raised bilingually from birth, is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
my 10-month-old doesn't speak that much yet.
Yes, And so you have a 10-month-old, a 3-year-old, and a 9-year-old who became sort of bilingual a bit later.
Well,
Yeah,
my 3-year-old has been mixing both from birth, really, so her balance is really good.
her balance is really good. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So do you ever get a situation where you speak to your children in Chinese and there's some reluctance or sort of resistance and try to talk to you in English, or you're not getting?
It it can be the opposite challenge,
It could be the
actually.
opposite, really.
So
Tell me about
my
it.
my wife's been in China for 6 months with the 3-year-old and the 10-month-old, and I've been over there for a few times, a few months at a time.
Mm,
And because she's been to nursery constantly for 6 months in
mm,
Chinese, her
mm.
English has been getting behind a bit. So my wife has been getting a bit worried about that.
Okay.
So she's been trying to speak English at home to
Oh,
her, and she'll understand, but then just reply in Chongqinghua.
oh, that's so interesting. I guess in China, the majority language would be Chinese, right? Or Chongqinghua. So the dynamics are different as compared to if you live here. That's really interesting. Right. So in the long term, are you guys settling in the UK or in China? You don't know yet.
Probably more in the UK, but we
Oh,
plan to spend a lot of time traveling between both countries because I
oh,
love I love being in China. I love the culture, the weather, and the food.
really? What about schools? Were you
Yeah,
home
so when they start school, they will be going to school in the UK
in the UK?
after they're 5 years old.
Yeah. So I'm sure you would have noticed that when children start school, that's when the school environment becomes really important and can sometimes have a negative impact on the home heritage languages, right? So are you concerned about that once they start going to school in the UK full time, that it might make keeping up the Chinese a lot more difficult at home? Are you concerned about it or not really at this stage?
A little bit, yeah, but we speak Chinese so much at home that
Uh,
I don't think it will be that much of a problem.
Okay.
I've heard
Yeah.
that when kids get to the teenage years, they might be embarrassed to speak Chinese with the parents, but we're
Yeah.
not at that stage yet.
You're not at that stage yet. Yes. Yeah, right. No, no, definitely. Recently, I've spoken to a school mum. So my son is 8.5. So apparently his friends speaks two additional languages at home. And more recently, he started saying to the mum, "No, I don't want to speak this language anymore. We live in England. You have to speak to me in English." So I don't know if that's, the embarrassment is starting to kick in. So how will you talk to your children about being bilingual when they get a bit older?
Yeah, I have heard from some friends in the community that
Ah,
when the kids get to the teenage years, they
yeah,
find it embarrassing in front of their friends at school to speak Chinese.
yes.
So, but
Mm,
I think we might not have that as a problem because
mm,
we spend so much time traveling to China and we
yes,
have extended family there. So the kids will want to keep up their Chinese to speak with the family in China.
absolutely. So the motivation to keep speaking the language will be quite strong,
I
right?
think so, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think motivation is a really important factor when raising bilingual children for sure. And so at the moment, do you use any classes, books or tutors, or is it just mostly coming from you and your wife and the grandparents?
Yeah, mostly from immersion
From,
through natural day-to-day conversations.
oh, yeah.
I did use
Mm,
italki a bit myself when I first
yeah,
started,
I talk
but
great. Yeah. Mm,
yeah, I think it was really useful, but I've just found the conversations to be a bit forced.
ah,
Like we're talking about this topic today, and we
yeah.
will have a structured conversation around that topic,
Mhm.
and it felt a bit unnatural to me.
Really? Uh-huh, uh-huh. So and how did you start learning Chinese in terms of your approach? Did you mostly teach yourself? Did you do any classes, any do you follow any structured programs?
I mostly taught myself through apps.
Mm. Which apps have you been using to teach yourself Chinese then?
So I did the word flashcards at
Mm-hmm.
first, as I said. I wrote my first app based on word flashcards, and then I
Mm.
got burned out with that. I
Mm-mm.
used LinkU a bit. Have you heard of
Link to, yeah,
that?
used it as well. Yeah.
So that's more focused on reading stories.
Yeah.
And I found that really helpful because it has the word tracking.
Yeah.
So it tracks which words you know, and then it sh can show you which stories that are at your level.
And everything is in context as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to focus on sentences more, so I made my second app, Mandarin Mosaic,
Yeah.
which focuses on sentences.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, no, your app is really good. I've given it a try myself, and I think it can help a lot of Chinese language learners for sure. Um, so you can tell us about a bit more about Mandarin Mosaic. Yeah. So what is it? Who is it for?
So I've focused more on intermediate level learners,
Mm-hmm.
and more recently I have been putting some more basic level things in there as well. But the main thing that I wanted to do with it was track how many words you know and
Mm-hmm.
show you sentences that are just at the right level for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I first started learning sentences, I wrote something that would take thousands of sentences from the internet, from like BBC, Zhongwen, and
Mm.
news stories, and show me random sentences. But the sentences were always too easy or too difficult for me.
Right.
So I wanted something that would know which words I
Mm-hmm.
know, so have a similar word tracking to LinkU, where
Yeah.
it tracks my vocabulary, but
Mm-hmm.
it searches through the database of thousands and thousands of sentences and
Yeah.
only shows me words which have one unknown word in them at most, or
Mm-hmm.
sometimes two unknown words if it's really struggling to find one, but
Yeah.
mostly sentences with one unknown word. So you can really focus on that word because everything around it you already understand and you
Yeah.
can learn the context.
Yeah.
And so when you first start using the app, if you're, say, HSK2 level, you'll know
Mm-hmm.
about 300 words.
Mm-hmm.
And there might be, in the app at the moment, I've got something like 30,000 sentences preloaded in. And there
Mm-hmm.
might be a few hundred sentences out of all of those where you know only one unknown word.
Yeah.
And then after you've reviewed maybe all of those, you
Mm-hmm.
probably learn some more new
Some
words.
new words as well.
So then that extends the range of how many sentences have one unknown word in them. So you
Yeah.
can get some more new sentences. And
Mm-hmm.
then everyone kind of weaves their own way through the sentences because one person might learn this word first,
Mm-hmm.
or a different person might learn a different word first because of
Mm-hmm.
their particular circumstances. So then it will start showing you more sentences focused on that word.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very personalized to each person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if I remember correctly, it also reads out the sentences to you, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it has a AI generated voice,
Yes. Which is pretty
which,
natural. Yeah, it's pretty good.
yeah, it's getting really advanced with the AI stuff now.
Oh,
So you
definitely.
can choose from something like 20 voices I've got in there. And there are even some Cantonese and
Yeah.
Taiwanese accents as well. So if you're learning traditional
Mhm.
Chinese or
Yeah.
Cantonese, it can help for that too.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. So quite a lot of my viewers are actually heritage Chinese speakers with Chinese backgrounds who are interested in learning or improving their Chinese. How do you think Mandarin Mosaic can help them?
I think that if you're a heritage speaker, what I hear a lot from them is that they can understand and
Mm-hmm.
maybe speak a lot, but the reading is more difficult because they're just used to conversations
Uh-huh.
from their parents and they
Mm-hmm.
haven't been exposed to the reading as much.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my app will focus on the reading more
Yeah.
and enable you to read the characters.
Absolutely. So would you say Mandarin Mosaic can teach a total beginner characters from scratch, or is it more for reviewing purposes?
It might be a bit difficult at first.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that you should learn HSK2 to HSK3 and then come into the sentences.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have packs. I have been adding packs recently
Mm-hmm.
for total beginners.
Yeah.
So I've added one pack recently, only uses HSK1 words and is aimed
Okay.
at total beginners. And
Total beginner.
that's been used quite heavily by the users, actually.
Yeah. How is the app doing so
Yeah,
far?
it's got a few thousand users,
That's pretty
and
good.
I've had some good
Yeah.
feedback from it, some really hardcore dedicated users.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's such a good resource, I think, for Mandarin or Chinese language learners, for sure. So Carl, what makes Mandarin Mosaic different from, the more well-known apps out there, like Duolingo or Pleco?
I think that Duolingo is very gamified
Game,
and
yes.
it tries to be more addictive
Mm,
than actually useful for teaching you a language.
mm-hmm,
So it might teach you the very basics. It might
mm-hmm.
be good for that if you don't have any background and give you the essentials, but it doesn't come back to content after a
Yeah,
while. It doesn't have spaced repetition,
yeah.
things like that.
Mm-hmm,
So my app will track which words you need to come back to. It has things like review lessons where if you
mm-hmm,
haven't seen a word for a while, it will
mm-hmm,
know that you need to come back to that word.
mm-hmm.
So it has
Yeah,
spaced repetition
yeah, built in.
and
Yeah.
also things like LingQ are more focused on stories. So
Mm-hmm.
the problem that I found with stories is that you might already understand quite a lot in the story and you might not be learning that many new words from the story.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're focusing on sentences, then you can make sure that every single sentence has something new for you to learn. So your learning can be much more concentrated and you can just get a lot more out of even 10 minutes of studying.
Yes, right. And it's not too overwhelming as well because in each sentence, there are just maybe one or two words that you don't know, right? It's
Yeah,
the idea behind that.
yeah. So it doesn't overwhelm you with too many unknown words.
Yes, that's right. I think that ties in with the whole sort of comprehensible input idea of
Yeah,
learning, right?
yeah, that's what I based it on. And there's also an approach called sentence mining,
Sentence mining.
which is what the app is really focused on.
Yeah. Do you have a background in language learning, linguistics?
No, actually. But
Mm-hmm.
when I first started learning Chinese, I researched the different methods and
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to make the most efficient use of my time.
Yeah.
So I looked into what are the best methods, things like SRS, spaced repetition.
Yeah.
I used that heavily on words to start
Mm-hmm.
with, but then I found words
Mm-hmm.
burned me out because they didn't give
Yeah.
enough context. So
Definitely.
then I looked more into comprehensible input and sentence mining.
Sentence mining, that's interesting. Can you tell us a bit more about sentence mining for those of us who are not familiar with the concept?
So that approach was, I think, first discovered by Stephen Krashen, was the
Mm-hmm.
person who researched it.
Yep.
And the idea is that you focus on sentences, you try to learn the structure from the sentence and reusable chunks.
Uh-huh.
So you might pick up a grammar chunk from that sentence, which you can then reuse in many other sentences and just swap out the verb or the noun and
Yeah.
reuse that grammar chunk. And
Uh-huh.
that helps with things like idiomatic expressions where
Mm-hmm.
you can't translate them literally.
Mm-hmm.
So if you translated every word from a Chinese idiomatic expression to English, it might come out as some English that doesn't really make sense, but
Yeah.
that's just the way that it's said in Chinese.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it really helps with idiomatic expressions because you're focusing on that as a chunk, and then
Mm-hmm.
you can just replace out the nouns in the sentence.
Got you. That sounds so in layman terms, you can say that it's sort of learning sentence patterns,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, and then just plugging in different vocabulary
yeah.
in very simple terms. That's fantastic. So is that an approach you would recommend to total beginners?
Um, it might be a bit difficult for total
Mm,
beginners. I
mm.
would recommend learning a few hundred words first.
It was. And how would you go about doing that? So if I were to come up to you, Carl, and say, oh, I don't speak Chinese, but I really want to learn Chinese. I don't know anything, starting from scratch, zero. What would you say to that person?
Well, the approach that I took when I first started was I just forced those words in, which and drilled them in, which was not the most pleasant experience. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't recommend that.
Mm,
But because I had so much motivation, I just drilled them in repetitively,
yeah.
and that burned me out from words.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do that, you might burn out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I would try to focus on very simple sentences that maybe only contain a few words
Yeah.
or only contain HSK1 words and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So yeah, also yeah, drilling a few word flashcards isn't too bad as long as it's not too extensive.
That's right. No, I know what you mean about, the drilling flashcard thing. It can be
Yeah,
exhausting, yes.
rote memorization.
Yes. Yeah, no, definitely. Great. So let's circle back to the bilingual side of things, if that's okay. So have you come across any challenges so far on your journey?
The main challenge I had was Chongqinghua, and that's really strong accent on the Mandarin and the
Mm,
communication issues that I had with my mother-in-law at the
uh,
start. But that has just come through repeated exposure to the accent
uh-huh.
and getting the kids to communicate with each other. So
Mm,
one thing at the start was my 9-year-old wouldn't understand some of the sentences that my
mhm,
3-year-old was saying because she hadn't had enough exposure to Chinese yet.
mhm. Yeah.
But I think just through, she's been using some apps to start at a basic level and
Mm,
learning a few words. And
mhm,
she surprises me actually because
mhm.
she'll say a new sentence to me and I was like, wow, where did you learn that? And she'll
Yeah.
say, oh, I learned it from my app yesterday.
Oh, wow. Which app is that?
Oh, she uses several. I don't know all of them.
Mhm.
One of them's Chinese Skill Builder, I
Oh,
think,
I've never heard of it.
and she uses my app as well.
Yeah.
She likes it because it has pictures in it for each sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So she gets to see the pictures and that she's more of a visual learner.
Yes. Okay. Right. That's interesting. So now when your mother-in-law speaks to you in Chongqinghua, do you reply in Chongqinghua or do you reply in English? Sorry, I mean Mandarin.
I reply in Mandarin
In Mandarin.
almost always because that's just another level to try and
Yeah.
reply in Mandarin would be another level of
Oh, yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
But I can understand a lot more of the Chongqinghua now.
Oh, that's great. And let's focus on the 3-year-old. Does she mix up Chongqinghua and Mandarin?
She So my wife has told me about a problem that she has recently
Mm.
where she'll speak Mandarin, but it will have a very strong Chongqinghua accent on the Mandarin.
Oh, I
And my
see.
wife will have to say, no, 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 you don't say it like that. That's not the
Ah,
right way to speak Mandarin. And she'll have to correct her.
okay, right. So, okay, so the Mandarin at the moment is coming from the Chinese nursery in China. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And my wife tries to um, teach my 3-year-old more Mandarin as well, because that's going to be, if we travel to different places in China, that's going to be the much more widely known language.
Of course. So let's okay. Let me see if I understand this correctly. So your wife, on a day-to-day basis, the daily conversation, she speaks to the 3-year-old in Chongqinghua. But in addition to that, she teaches her Mandarin. Is that what you're saying?
I think
Or she uses
she,
a mix of Mandarin
yeah,
and
she
Chongqinghua?
uses a mix, but
Okay,
more recently she's been realizing that she needs to use more Mandarin with her, otherwise she won't learn it.
you won't learn it. I see. Okay, that's interesting. Um, in the long term, is it very important for you guys to keep up Chongqinghua?
Yeah, because we have lots of extended family as we go
Mhm.
to, as I said, we go to the rural towns where there won't be much Mandarin used,
Wow.
and a lot of the older generation won't speak much Mandarin.
I don't speak much Mandarin. Yeah. What's really encouraging about what you told me, Carl, is that your 9-year-old is actually picking up quite a lot of Chinese quite effortlessly, right? Because a lot of my viewers, they're worried that, oh, is it too late to start speaking to my child in my language, or they've lost the language? How do I sort of revive it? But I think your situation, your example shows that it is entirely possible, right?
Yeah, I would say that it's never too late as
It's
long
never
as you,
too late.
yeah, as long as you create enough immersion. And I
Mm,
think that because we've created quite a lot of immersion at home,
mm,
that's accelerated her progress.
100%. You guys have
So,
done a really good job with the immersion, I think.
yeah, her main motivator is that she wants to learn Chinese to speak more to my 3-year-old because they
Oh,
play with each other a lot.
do they? That's really sweet. Even though they're 6 years apart.
Yeah. And at
Mhm.
first, she would get quite frustrated because she couldn't understand her and then ask me and my wife, oh, what's she saying? But
Yeah,
then that really drove her to learn the simple words and then build
yeah,
upon that and learn more advanced words.
yeah. And is she starting to use some sentences as well, the 9-year-old?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
she even speaks to my wife's mum as well, who doesn't speak any English. So
Wow, that's
when
great.
my wife's mum first came to stay with us in the
Yeah.
UK, my 9-year-old, they would communicate through sign language. So if she wanted a glass of water, they would be like this.
Yeah, yeah. Oh wow, but now she's moving on to using some Chinese with your mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's really, really inspiring and I think motivating for a lot of my viewers. So thanks for sharing that. That's fantastic. Wow, okay. So yeah, that's all the questions I've got. Do you have any questions for me, or is there anything else you would like to share with my viewers?
I think the encouragement that I'd give to your viewers is to just create as much immersion at home as possible.
Yeah. Definitely. And in more concrete terms, how would you achieve that?
Um, Try and watch media
Yeah,
at
media.
home, like TV series in Chinese. Try and speak as
Mm-hmm.
much Chinese with your kids as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so in your case, you and your wife speak each other's language. What would you say to parents where one parent doesn't speak the other's language? It can create some tension or, it's a reason why lots of, I think, families don't try to raise bilingual children. What would you say to them?
I think if you if you have a partner who speaks another language, that's really an opportunity to learn someone else's culture.
Yeah.
And why would you not?
Yeah, that's how
Like,
I see it as well. Yeah.
yeah, when I first met my wife, I always knew I wanted to learn Chinese because there's that opportunity of the other culture there.
Mm,
And I think if you don't, then you're missing out, really. And
100%.
I can understand why that would cause tension.
Yeah. Are there times when your wife says something to your children that you don't understand?
sometimes, but not very often because
Mhm.
my 3-year-old is obviously not going to be using very advanced Chinese.
Yeah.
And my strategy is that I always want to be above her level. So as she gets older, her level is gradually going to be improving.
Yes.
And as I stay above that, I will always be learning. And if she
Mhm.
ever overtakes me in terms of um, vocabulary, that's going
Yeah.
to be where the problem starts.
Well, are you actively trying to improve your Chinese, Carl?
Yeah, so I'm
Wow.
studying in my app every day, learning new words,
Wow. Very commendable.
and I try and immerse as much
Oh,
as possible. So when I go to China, I'm speaking Chinese to all of my wife's family.
yeah.
And when I go out, if I go to shopping centers or anything or restaurants, I'll try and speak Chinese with the staff.
Do people always understand you?
Not always, but I'm getting better.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. You're making a great effort.
Thanks.
Yes, yeah. So, where can people find Mandarin Mosaic, and how can they follow your journey or get in touch?
So it's on both the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Just search for Mandarin Mosaic or go to mandarinmosaic.com and
Mhm.
you can email info@mandarinmosaic.com.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to talk about or share or discuss?
So where do you come from in China and do you have your own dialect or accent?
Ah, yes. So that's a really good question. So I was born in Shanghai. My mom is from Shanghai. I was born there. I moved to Hong Kong when I was a child. So I grew up speaking primarily Cantonese as my sort of community language. I so I've always spoken Mandarin because when I went to visit my relatives in Shanghai, everyone only spoke to me in Mandarin.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we experienced that as well.
they speak among themselves. They spoke Shanghainese, but
Yeah.
they never taught. No one taught me Shanghainese. My mom didn't speak
Yeah.
Shanghainese, and yeah. So that's my background.
Yeah, I've heard that Shanghaiese is like a completely different language. You
Yeah,
can't even, it's not even comparable to Mandarin.
it's completely different. I would say it's as different from Mandarin as Cantonese is from Mandarin. Completely different language, you might say, linguistically, even though in China itself is classified as a dialect. Yeah.
Yeah. And how often do you get a chance to visit, go back out there now?
It has been a long time. I would love to visit sometime next year, perhaps with the children for sure. But the last time I went was maybe more than 10 years ago. Yeah.
Right.
But that's so before coming to the UK, I came to the UK in 2003. Before coming to the UK, I went to Shanghai a few times a year, at least once a year, definitely. I was spending summer there. But now not so much.
And how old are your children now?
6 and 8. Sorry, 7 and 8.
So they haven't had a chance to visit China then?
Not at all. Not at all.
Right. So does that make it very difficult for you to create immersion opportunities for them?
Yeah, so it puts a lot of pressure on me, I suppose, because my husband
Yeah.
doesn't speak Chinese, so it's just coming from me and my mum as well, because my mum lives in the UK and we see her once a week, and so she's on board with the whole thing. So she speaks to the children in Mandarin, yes, and so do I. So I speak to the children in Mandarin. So when my son was born, I started speaking to him in Cantonese initially. And then, but then my husband and I, we always agreed, even before our children were born, that we wanted our future children to be able to speak Mandarin in addition to any other languages. So when he was 2, we added Mandarin. So I added Mandarin to our language sort of mix. And then eventually it just got a bit too much for me. So
Yeah.
Cantonese sort of faded away and we kept Mandarin. So we
Yeah, I
speak.
saw on your channel actually one of your videos where you dropped Cantonese
Yeah,
and you really regretted it.
I really do. So I think it's really great that you guys are keeping, Chongqinghua up. I think that's fantastic. And I feel like in China, I don't know if you're aware of this, Carl, but maybe the current generation things have changed for them, but for example, all my cousins in Shanghai, to my knowledge, they speak Mandarin at home to their children now. So the dialects or regional languages variants are really dying out. And
Yeah.
yeah, are you aware of that phenomenon?
Yeah.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
does your mother help with that actually? Because she's from the older generation, I assume.
Yeah,
How
so
good is her English, and does she have any of the dialects still in her that she
oh,
speaks?
I would say she would consider her mother tongue to be Shanghainese.
Yeah.
And for her, maybe Mandarin and Cantonese are about the same in terms of fluency. I don't know, maybe not. I think she's more fluent in Mandarin than Cantonese, and then English.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
does she speak any of the Shanghaiese or the Cantonese with the children?
No, unfortunately, no. No, so we're not doing that. Although my children, they have some interest in learning Cantonese because they hear that quite a lot, and quite a lot of children in their school are recent migrants from Hong Kong.
Oh,
Um,
right.
yeah, yeah, there's been a huge influx of Hong Kong migrants in the UK recently, in recent years. So they have an interest in learning Cantonese. So I would be up, to the challenge of teaching them, but it's not
Yeah.
something we are doing consistently right now.
So even
Mm,
though you dropped it at one point, you're
mm.
still hopeful about picking it back up in the future then?
Yeah, I would say so. Yes, potentially. Because I do regret it. I do regret it to an extent, and I feel like more people should be, not should be, but it would be good if more people try to speak to their children in the regional Chinese languages variants as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long has your mum been living in the UK for?
Same time as us. So we moved here as a family. Yeah, so 22 years.
Wow. And did she find English difficult at the start, or had she learned before she came?
She had learned some English before, so she met my stepfather back in Hong Kong. My stepfather is English,
Yeah.
so they were already communicating with each other in English even back in Hong Kong. But I'm sure my mum's Chinese, sorry, English has improved a lot since moving here, of course, yes.
Yeah, I've noticed that with my wife as well. Her
Yeah,
English was great when she first moved here because she obviously learned it at school for 20 years.
yeah.
But it's really improved as I've known her and I've helped her as well,
Oh,
even though she does get a bit frustrated with me correcting her sometimes.
Oh, on the subject of correction, do you correct, does your wife, you did mention earlier that your wife does correct your daughter sometimes, right? If she
Yeah.
says, speaks Mandarin in a way that is maybe not so accurate or precise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so she'll correct if my daughter is speaking Mandarin and maybe one or two of the words is a bit of a strong Chongqinghua accent, she'll
Yeah,
correct them. But if the whole sentence is Chongqinghua, then that's fine.
yeah, because
And
that's intentional then, yeah, sure.
yeah, and my wife doesn't correct me that much actually,
Hmm.
but I've been trying to get her to correct me more because she
Hmm.
sometimes feels like it might be rude or I might get offended, but
Yeah,
actually I want to say to her, no, correct me more because I want that input and I want that feedback.
feedback.
And
Yeah.
there was actually something that I learned wrong for about a year. I was
Hmm.
using the wrong expression for like a year. So
Yeah.
that's a bit of a story, actually.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to remember. So I, the expression "Zai sure," it means we'll talk about it later, right?
再说，嗯嗯
So I, I thought that that meant "Zai sure y bien." So can you say it
Ah,
again, please?
yeah, yeah.
So for a long time, if I if I didn't quite catch something that someone said and I wanted to say, can you say it again, please? I
Mm.
said, Zaya, sure. And they would think I meant, oh, let's speak about it later, or it
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
yeah,
And then they would go quiet. And I would think, oh, every time I ask someone to say something again, the conversation just kind of
yeah,
trails off and they stop speaking. So I mixed those two up for a very long time.
So funny. I love that example. So how, how did you eventually realize your mistake?
I was just thinking about it afterwards because every time I said it, people kind of stopped speaking. And one woman actually got a bit annoyed with me because I was trying to ask, there was some piano classes and we were trying to get my daughter involved in them
Yeah.
in China. And I was asking some questions, and the woman just said something too fast and I didn't
Mhm.
understand. And I said, Zaishaw. And then she was just kind of told me to go away. And
She
I
thought
was
you
like,
were dismissing her, basically.
yeah. And then she
That's
was
so funny.
like, just go away.
Let's go.
And then I was
Oh,
like, well, that was a really strange interaction. What happened there? And I was thinking
mhm.
about it afterwards in my head, and I was like, oh, right. So actually, I said that and it meant that.
Mm. Yeah.
And then I asked my wife about it, and she was like, yeah, that's right.
And all that time she didn't correct you.
Yeah,
Ah, okay. That's such an interesting topic because I think people can have quite different views when it comes to correcting someone, right? Like it can feel a bit rude, or
yeah,
discouraging to correct somebody. But then at the same time, I think it is good to give feedback, isn't it? And to get,
yeah. So I'm trying to strike a balance with that with my wife because sometimes she might get frustrated with me overcorrecting with her. But
uh,
then at the same time, some things she wants to learn. So I
yes.
have to correct her a few times before she will actually remember it.
Yes, 100%. No, I definitely get that. I get the same, I feel, with my children as well. There are some certain structures that they struggle to, that don't really stick, right? It's really hard for them to stick. So, for example, when my children were younger, they would sometimes translate things from English into Chinese, like word for word.
Yeah,
So, yeah, like, for example, so and so, a character from a cartoon, they would say 从那个来的一个人物 a character. So
yeah,
从 we don't say that in Chinese. You would just say
from,
yeah, you don't say from. In English, you say from. So they would translate word for word, and I would have to gently correct them. And now they don't say that anymore. A very common mistake that they made, not so much now, but back in when they were younger. So, the position, like the location in English comes last.
yeah,
And yeah, the word order, right? So in Chinese, that comes first. So,
yeah,
比如说，举个例子，我今天在学校干了什么什么什么。So
yeah.
and then because they translate from English, they might say 我今
I today at school.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and the time comes first as well, doesn't it?
So basically, the word order, a lot of like quite often they would use the English word order and just plug in Chinese words.
Right.
But over time they improved, but I do try to gently correct them because the way I see it is that if they were growing up in China, I wouldn't correct them because it was self-correct over time. But because I am the only one who speaks to them in Chinese, they're only getting this input just from me and my mum.
Yeah.
If I don't correct them, no one else will, and they don't even realize that it's not correct. So that's my take on it. Yeah.
Yeah, so you must worry then that they're only getting one perspective of Chinese,
Oh yeah,
and I would want them to get a more diverse
100
input.
definitely.
So, yeah, one fear I would have in that situation is that they only get my perspective or
Mm,
one way of saying things. So, is that
yeah.
something that you worry about?
Oh, 100%. I think the more diverse the input, the better. Definitely. So we try to arrange play dates with other Chinese families, just get together so they get to hear Chinese from other people. But ultimately,
Yeah,
you really need to visit China, definitely. It also helps that I have a cousin who lives in Germany. So she's from Shanghai, and she's also raising her kids to be bilingual in German and Chinese in her case. And yeah, so when we get together, which is once a year, and we spend maybe a week, 10 days together, you can really see the Chinese, the the kids' Chinese improve?
Yeah, that's one piece of advice I'd give you to your
Mm,
listeners actually. Try and arrange play dates with,
yeah,
even if you live in the UK, try to make friends with other Chinese couples and arrange play dates with their children.
yeah.
Is that something you find difficult actually finding friends from China in the UK?
I'm very fortunate in that I used to work in a company where there was a group of us, group of Chinese colleagues. So we've stayed in touch over the years, and we don't see each other that often, but regularly. We do meet up regularly, and we all have children now, similar ages. So that's really nice when we get together.
Yeah, we try and do that quite often, but one challenge is we find it difficult to meet people that are from China.
Oh,
So we have
really?
Facebook groups that we interact with on
Where do you guys live? Do you mind me asking?
in Hull. It's in the north of England.
Are there not many Chinese people there?
Not in Hull itself, but
In
we go to visit places like Leeds, and Sheffield has a huge Chinese like culture of migrants in there.
Yeah.
And we also visit Manchester. Manchester has its own Chinatown. That's only a
Manchester
2 hour
has
drive from
Manchester
us.
has a huge Chinese community, right?
Yeah.
I've heard.
Whereabouts are you living in the UK?
Watford, just outside of London. I used to
Yeah.
we used to live in London. We moved to Watford 5 years ago.
Yeah. So it must be very expensive, I might imagine.
Yes, it's better than London, but it's not cheap.
Yeah. We go to visit Leeds probably once every few weekends. And there
Leeds.
are, yeah,
Mm.
there's a lot of places to eat out there and a bit of a Chinese culture.
Oh wow, is that your nearest large city?
Yeah. It's about 1 hour drive from us.
Are you anywhere near Newcastle?
No, that's about th 3 hours north.
Oh, is it?
I've
Right.
been there once.
Newcastle is lovely.
Yeah, we visited Scotland as well.
Scotland is also nice.
Yeah, but
Mm.
it's a bit quieter, and we went out to the different like rural communities like the Isle of Skye.
Yes. Yeah, I heard it's really beautiful out there. So if you guys ever, come down south, definitely we should meet up in real life.
Yeah, I'm from
Oh,
Kent
really nice.
actually.
Are you from Kent? Okay,
Yeah, originally.
so not too
I've
far.
got a bit of a London accent.
You do, yeah. Definitely. So you and your wife met in China, in the UK?
We met while she was studying in Leeds actually.
Ah, she was a student in Leeds.
Yeah, doing
Okay.
her postmaster's degree.
Oh,
And
wow.
I went to Leeds as well. I did my degree there.
You guys met at uni, basically.
Yeah.
Ah, oh, wow. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I've carried on working for companies in Leeds because it's
Mm-hmm,
quite a big city and it's great for computer science.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never been to Leeds or Hull for that matter.
Yeah, I'd recommend visiting Leeds.
Would you?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a great city.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so I actually have one more question for you, Carl. So
yeah.
do you intend to send your children to sort of a Chinese language school or do like online lessons? A lot of parents, I think, do that. Like Lingo Ace, Chinese bus. I think there are a few Chinese language schools online as well.
So is that like an immersion school in the UK?
No, so I'm talking about two separate things here. So
Yeah.
weekend language schools, and then my son, for example, he went to a Chinese weekend language school for a few months before COVID, in London. So that's a few hours on the weekend. And then there's also online schools where you have online lessons with a teacher. So we tried Wukong school online lessons for maybe 6 months. So is that something you would consider for your daughters?
I think possibly in the future, but we try and reduce their screen time is one
Yeah,
factor. So
yeah,
the apps are useful, but we don't want them to be spending too long on the tablet staring
that's
at the screen.
that. Yeah,
And also, if they have italki lessons online, then they'll be kind of in a room at a
Mm.
computer on their own
Yeah.
when they could just be
Oh,
immersing in the house with
yeah,
us. And my wife's mum comes to visit, some
yeah.
more family might come to visit, so I don't think it
Mm.
will really be necessary.
No, I'm totally with you on this, Carl. The reason we gave up, well, I stopped the Chinese, the online lessons, was because I don't really like the screen time aspect.
Yeah,
It's very overstimulating for the children. And like you said, a lot of this, I think you mentioned that in relation to Duolingo, very gamified,
yeah,
but it doesn't teach you much. That's how I felt. Um,
yeah. I
yeah,
kind of felt like with Duolingo, the focus was make it as addictive as possible. And
yeah,
if it teaches you some Chinese, then that's great. But
it's a
the
bonus.
main, yeah, the main focus was make it as addictive as possible.
Yeah, right, not 100%. I'm with you on this. It's just a dopamine overload.
Yeah, definitely.
No, so that's why we stopped the online lessons as well. But yeah, I'm very keen to explore summer schools, maybe in China. I think that would be really beneficial. Yeah,
Yeah.
which schools maybe?
Yeah, we go to visit China quite regularly, so we
Mm.
get that exposure anyway.
Uh, Not 100%. So for us as a family, that will be our next big goal to visit, to do a big trip to China for sure.
Yeah. Do you think you would stay for quite a while then?
Um, I don't know about quite a while because we don't really have somewhere to stay, so we'll have to pay for, hotels. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure, but if we do go, we'll have to make it worthwhile, right? So I'm thinking maybe 2, 3 weeks. So maybe 10 days in Shanghai. I have lots of relatives there. All my extended family lives there, and then my children want to see 熊猫 pandas.
Yeah.
We'll be keen to visit the panda center. I think in Chengdu.
Yeah, we've been there actually.
Is it worth it?
Yeah, they have the tiny pandas,
Baby
and
panda.
we didn't do this actually, but if you spend the whole day there, you can actually go in and feed them.
Oh
But
wow.
you have to do something beforehand and learn some handling techniques because the bigger ones can be dangerous.
Oh wow.
But you have to kind of work with them on that.
Oh wow. So you haven't done that yet?
No, we didn't do that, but we did see them through the glass,
Oh, amazing.
and you can see the enclosure where they have the baby ones, and they're really cute.
Of course, we would love to do that for sure. Another slight hurdle for us is that we would need visas to go there. I don't,
Right.
but
Yeah.
my children do, so does my husband. So that's another, hoop to jump through, but we will have to make the effort for sure. It will be worth it.
Yeah, because me and my wife are married, I didn't have a problem with that. I
Uh,
applied for a visa. I did have to apply, but I got on quite easily,
you got one
and
quite,
so did my 9-year-old
yeah.
daughter.
Oh, I'm sure we'll get the visa easily. It's just the cost, right? Like everything
Yeah,
add up.
and I had to. You have to drive to the application centre in Manchester, which was a pain as well.
Wow. Oh, I guess for us, we'll just have to go into London. It's still
Yeah,
a pain. Yeah, yeah, but we really look forward to that. Hopefully next year. We'll see.
yeah, sounds great.
Yeah. Um, is there anything else you would like to discuss?
So you have your own channel where you discuss topics like this
Yeah.
for multilingual families. So I
Mm.
wanted to ask, what advice would you give to me in my scenario?
In your scenario, yeah. What advice would I give to you in your scenario? I think you guys are already doing everything really great. Like the fact that you're even keeping up Chongqinghua, you're doing better than us. Although, like in our defense, we have Russian as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have
And
three languages.
do you
Mm.
find it difficult to how far are your children along with learning that?
Russian.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they are not fluent, like as in they don't speak like native speakers of their age in Russia, but they only talk to dad in Russian.
Yeah.
Not everything is maybe grammatically correct, but they can have conversations for sure.
So is he their only input then?
On a daily basis, yes. No, although no, actually, they do go to Russian school every Sunday.
Oh, right. So that must help quite
Additional
a lot.
exposure. Yeah, yeah, which is good. But other than that, it's just dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Well, thank you for the advice,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was great to speak to you.
Yeah, great to speak. The other thing just one more point to add, Carl. So, yeah, in terms of advice, you guys are really doing great already. Just make sure that you stay consistent. And when the children start school, if they start resisting, speaking
Yeah.
Chinese, don't give in, don't give up.
Yeah, that'll really be the challenge when they get older.
Yes.
Because now they're young, they will immerse at home with us, but when they start going to school, they kind of get their own minds and
Yes.
get their own friends who lead them astray and things like that. So that'll really be the challenge.
Yes, it will be a challenge for both of us, right? Definitely. So, yeah, thank you so much, Carl, for speaking with us. I think my audience will really love this interview and
Yeah,
get
great to speak to you.
great speaking to you. Okay, take care. See you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
So, I hope you guys enjoyed today's interview. Here are 5 key takeaways and insights from the interview that I believe you can benefit from and even implement in your own routine starting today. First, sibling power. Don't underestimate the impact of siblings learning from and teaching each other. Carl's 9-year-old daughter picked up Chinese rapidly just by playing with her younger sister. It shows that language learning doesn't always need a classroom. Sometimes a sibling can be the best teacher. Second, remember that immersion can happen anywhere. You don't need to live abroad to create a rich language environment. Carl's family lives in the UK, but thanks to regular visits from relatives, cultural trips, and consistent exposure at home, Chinese remains a living language for his kids. Having said that, spending time in China definitely helps with the process as well. Third takeaway, it's never too late to start. Carl's eldest daughter didn't grow up bilingual from birth, but with the right motivation and environment, she's now confidently using Chinese in real life. So if your child is older and you're wondering, is it too late? The answer is no. Fourth takeaway, code mixing and accent blending are totally normal, especially in families juggling multiple dialects or language variants. Carl's 3-year-old daughter mixes Chongqinghua and Mandarin, and that's okay. Kids will refine their speech over time with gentle guidance and consistent input. And finally, perhaps the most important one, being willing to learn your partner's language can change everything. Carl didn't just support his kids' bilingual journey, he jumped in himself, learning Chinese from scratch. It's a beautiful reminder that language is about connection, not perfection. If you are learning Mandarin or know someone who is learning Mandarin, be sure to check out his app, Mandarin Mosaic. As a Mandarin speaker and teacher, I can definitely vouch for it. The link to his app is in the description box below. And if you want more tips on learning your partner's language, check out my video where I go into this in more depth, link down below. And if you are just beginning your own bilingual parenting journey, go check out my completely free 45-minute video course here on YouTube. You'll also be able to download a free 48-page guide completely for free.